Fifth Fire commentary number. Holy shit, Parasite Eve 2. Are you kidding me? Oh man. Anyway, for Hit Fire commentary number 155, Musashi is following the new guidelines that I have over at Prestige Gamers. I said I wanted 10 videos of old school video games. That was what I wanted. I wanted games before the year 2000, and a whole bunch of people participated in this. A whole bunch of people went out, I think within like 5 or 6 days. They all submitted 10 videos for old school Hipfire commentary videos. That was what I wanted. I wanted something from back in the day before the year 2000. Now, obviously, I don't know what I was going to get. All I knew was they were going to be fucking old. I did not expect Parasite Eve, or Parasite Eve 2, whatever the fuck you want to call this bullshit, man. Anyway, for those that don't know a little bit about this game, now I'm going to try and explain a little bit of it, because remember, this shit is fucking almost fucking 15 years old and shit like that. Parasite Eve started off as some Japanese novel, if I'm not mistaken, some kind of a comic or hentai. You know, the Japanese, they like all that crazy shit. So the very first game, Parasite Eve 1, that was sort of, oh my god, look at that shit, man. Old school payphone. They don't have those shit nowadays, man. And look, of course, you gotta go answer that shit. All these fucking dead people around here, but yeah, we're gonna go answer the goddamn phone and shit like that. Now, but anyway, the very first Parasite Eve video game was sort of a sequel to the novel Parasite Eve, and I'm not gonna get into the whole shit of it, but basically, yes, there is a huge parasite, and this is the main detective. What was it? Aya, some shit like that. I know it was AYA was her damn name, but of course nobody ever talked in this motherfucker, so you just had to go by Aya, whatever. So she's the main detective, and she cannot be infected by Parasite Eve. That's the basics of it. So she needs to be the one that has to go out and kill this crazy bitch. I mean, that's the gist of the storyline. I mean, I remember it from part 1, and you know what sucks, man? The game is so old. Obviously, I played both of them, and the thing is that I have like both of them sort of like melded together and shit like that. It's almost like it's hard to explain. It's RPGs meets Resident Evil. That's the best way you could describe it. It's like Final Fantasy met Resident Evil, and they created this cool game that's based off of some Japanese comic book novel, whatever the fuck it was back in the day. Wait. I remember playing this shit. And then, don't get me wrong, when back in the day, this would scare the shit out of you. There were parts that were like, oh shit, don't do that, don't go through that door and shit like that, man. But it was a very entertaining game back in the day. If I'm not mistaken, and you guys can correct me on this, I'm sure Musashi will probably tell me this, but was this recently re-released on PlayStation Network as part of like those old school games that they were bringing back, if I'm not mistaken? I think they re-released this shit, because I know they released some kind of successor or whatever the hell on, was it PlayStation Portable or PlayStation Video? It was called The Third Birthday or something like that. And then as part of that, as part of like the run up to that game, oh yeah, don't shoot, because the graphics are so fucking bad. No, but anyway, they re-released this motherfucker so people can go back and play this shit. So I assume that's how Musashi got this motherfucker. He obviously went on a PlayStation Network, got it or something. Man, I don't know, maybe he's playing the original, who knows? I mean, this was very fucking entertaining back in the day. Now, this comes from Squaresoft, and I'm saying Squaresoft, not Square Enix, because this was back before they did the whole merger and shit like that. And if there was a company that ever created gold mines back in the day, it was Squaresoft. I mean, Squaresoft obviously created the Final Fantasy series, and with Final Fantasy 7, obviously that blew up. Everybody know that put PlayStation on the map, that put Final Fantasy back on the map. And Musashi, you couldn't get some like fucking action up in this bitch? I mean, you're doing the whole, and you guys will see, this is just like Resident Evil, you know, where the square key unlocks the circle door, and inside the circle door, you grab the diamond key, and the diamond key unlocks the green door, and the green door has the red card, and the red card allows you to go to, oh my god, man, those fucking games back in the day. That's how they prolonged the game, is you had to keep finding keys to go through doors. Oh man, I hated that shit, man. Anybody play Resident Evil remembers that shit? Oh, it was fucking irritating. But anyway, getting back into this shit, Squaresoft was making gold back in the day. I mean, they just put the name Squaresoft on it, and people ran out, and they bought the motherfucker from Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8. I'm trying to think of some other shits that they created. They had Star Ocean back in the day. You name it, and then Parasite Eve. As long as they put the name Squaresoft on the motherfucker, people went out, and they bought that shit in droves. Nowadays, I don't know what's fucked up with Square. I mean, you got Square Enix and shit like that. And when I saw this fucking thing, man, all I kept thinking was, this shit is straight out of Resident goddamn Evil, man. It looks just like a liquor without the damn graphics and the tongue and shit like that. But anyway, yeah, you gotta see the, oh yeah, I remember they changed the combat system on this motherfucker. I remember it took me so long to get adjusted to that shit, man. It was a pain in the damn ass. But anyway, I know one of the knocks on this game was the change to the combat system. So that's like the best action we have so far. parachuting that shit that turns into like jelly and shit like that. Now, one of the things that was in this game was now it's hard not to give away the plot. I mean, I realize nobody's gonna go back and play this motherfucker. But obviously, this parasite would turn people into like these orange globs or some shit like that. They would just like spontaneously combust and shit like that. Well, he's not gonna do it, but people would just spontaneously combust. And she was the only one that wasn't affected by this. And back in the day, they were talking all this science and shit like that, like oh, the mitochondria and all this shit inside the cells. You know, they didn't fucking know any better, man. I mean, they were going off of 15-year-old technology. You know how much the technology and medicine and all the science have expanded and gotten better over these years. So back in the day, they went what they could to make this shit scary. And this wasn't that fucking scary. It was just, whatever. Well, not scary. It wasn't accurate. Because now you look back at this shit and you're like, man, this shit ain't fucking accurate. And here's the funny shit. This lady just sitting there, just chilling in a goddamn diner, and is like, hey, yeah, all these dead people around me. I ain't gonna do nothing, man. And then, oh, yep, she's dead. Oh, well. So, and again, man, I'm confusing Parasite Eve 1 and Parasite Eve 2, because I remember so many pieces, they kind of, like, melded together and shit like that, and here's where you can see it turns all Resident Evil and shit when people start turning into these damn monsters and crap. And these were the cutscenes back in the day. I don't know if he took this off of PlayStation Network or if this is the original shit, but as you can see, this is what they used to have back in the day. You threw in these, you threw in the cutscenes, and the cutscenes turned into this shit, so... And now she's turning. What the hell were these damn monsters called? I forgot what the fuck they were called. It's driving me nuts now that I can't remember this shit. So anyway, you turn into a monster, and then her mouth rips open, eyeballs turn, fingernails, and all this shit. So now this is a crazy motherfucker. So the detective Aya, whatever her name is, Aya Brea, I can't remember that shit. Now she gotta kill this motherfucker. Look at that shit, man. And you know what? The funny thing is, the first game, which, like I said, was the sort of a direct sequel to the novel, it felt like the movie Species. And if anybody had ever seen the movie Species, you would know that it felt very, very similar. You know, if you watch the movie Species and then you played Parasite Eve, it was like, man, this shit feels the damn same. And then look at this. This is how this was the fighting system back in the day. It wasn't that great, trust me. It got frustrating because you had to turn and run and oh man, it was fucking irritating and shit. So whatever. This is how you used to have to fight back in the day. It was a pain in the ass. But needless to say, obviously video games have advanced. Obviously video games have become better over time. But this was the one downside to the game. If you look back, you're like, wow, this is what you used to play. Yeah, this is how we used to play. Can't control that shit. This was the technology back in the day, man. This was what, PlayStation 1, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it was PlayStation 1. I don't think PlayStation 2 was out yet. So this is the shit we had to go through. This is how we fucking played on video games back in the day. So no, this is not PlayStation 3. This is not Xbox 360. This is not the updated PCs and shit like that. This is old school shit. That's the best way I can describe the motherfucker. But anyway, getting back into the story, it was just like the movie Species, because the monster at in Species. Oh yeah, here's like Mr. T and shit. So anyway, the monster at the end of Species, basically, it wanted to reproduce it. Yeah, this is how you're supposed to, you know, I gotta talk about this in a second. But anyway, you know what, I might as well just talk about it now, because I could talk about the Species shit in a second. You ever notice that in movies, you shoot a motherfucker, and people don't keep going up and shooting it to make sure it's dead? You ever notice that? This dude did it the smart way. He just went up and he said, fuck this shit, man. I'm popping enough bullets in his ass to make sure he's dead. You ever notice that shit? You shoot the bad guy, and the bad guy has on a bulletproof vest, or he gets back up in 2 seconds, and he goes and he scares the shit out of the good guy. Listen, when you shoot the motherfucker, if he falls on the floor, run up to the son of a bitch, put your gun to their damn head, and blow their fucking head off. Now you know they're dead. Now there's no way about it. There's no way around that shit, man. So anyway, getting back to this before, because I see I got, what, less than the minute on this video. You know, Species, the whole point of Species was the alien wanted to reproduce. And in Parasite Eve, she's trying to give birth to, what was it, the ultimate being? If I'm not mistaken, that was the first one, the ultimate being and shit like that. So you had to chase her ass all around New York City. You had to go to the Statue of Liberty. You had to go to the Museum of Natural History. I believe the Chrysler Building was up in that motherfucker. It was like a bonus level and shit like that. They had all kinds of shit back in the game, but it was just like this. That's the best way I can describe it. And if you watch the movie Species, it felt very similar to that shit. So anyway, there's the end of the video. I didn't get to rant about, not rant, but I didn't get to talk about all the shit that I wanted to talk about. So anyway, as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. And like I said, guys, we're doing a whole bunch of old school videos. Old school videos for the Hip Fire Commentary series are going to be coming up, so you guys are going to get to enjoy some of those.